centralize the Jewish government. Sort of like the Caesars did for Rome, Herod did for the Jewish people. Herod brought in outside foreign soldiers to come in and do the work that he wanted done. But you got to realize the work that Herod wanted done. Herod was paranoid. Being that he was not a Jew per se from the line of Jacob, but he's part of that family of Esau, he takes on the Jewish faith, but he becomes very paranoid. Herod had his favorite wife murdered because he thought she was having an affair, but she wasn't, history has proven. Herod had 10 other wives. Herod had 3 of his sons murdered. The first 2 were murdered because they found out that he had killed his first wife. So Herod had those sons killed. The Caesar at one point said it was better to be a dog in Herod's family than to be one of Herod's sons. And the Greek word for there is a son is hos, H-U-S, and a pig is hoios, H-U-O-I-S, I think is how you spell it. So there's a play on words that the Caesar is doing. But that it was better to be a dog in Herod's house than to be one of Herod's family members. Killed his favorite wife. Killed 3 of his sons. He killed one of his father-in-laws. He executed his mother-in-law, one of them, as well as an uncle. When Herod fell ill, ready to die, Herod called, as he's falling ill, ready to die, 2 of the Jewish teachers in the temple incite their students to take down this big eagle that Herod had put on the temple. Herod had his feet in both worlds. In the Jewish world, but also in the Roman world. And the Roman symbol was a big eagle. So these 2 Jewish teachers realize Herod's going to die. They get their pupils to get up and take this big eagle off the temple. Herod hears about it, and he is in the process of dying. What does he do? He has both of the teachers and all of their pupils burned alive, or burned to death. He was paranoid. Right before Herod died, after he had sent the soldiers into Bethlehem, right before he died, Herod knew people were not going to mourn his death. So he sent letters out to all the heads of the Jewish families and told all of the heads of the families they needed to come to Jerusalem, and they needed to be there in Jerusalem for some reason. Well, his reason was he had commanded his sister upon his death to kill all the heads of the families. Because he said he wanted mourning in Jerusalem, even if it wasn't mourning over his death. All these other people would be mourning. Thankfully, when he died, his sister refused to carry out his order. Herod, we call as Herod the Great, and yet he was a paranoid murderer. But the thing that Herod did that was really great was the fact that he built these palaces. Well, here you see Jerusalem. A little bit southwest of Jerusalem is Bethlehem, just a few miles. And then 6 kilometers down, so 4.5 miles down, is Herod's palace called the Herodion. To get a picture of why he built the Herodion, the palace, you need to realize that around 30 BC, there's Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Remember the story, how they fall in love with each other and all this stuff that's going on? Well, Mark Antony of the Roman world and Cleopatra of Egypt. Herod got along with Mark Antony. He did not get along with Cleopatra of Egypt. So Herod built not only the Herodion, but there were 3 palaces or fortresses that Herod had built so that for, down here in Egypt, if Cleopatra would attack, Herod could get away from her and get back down to his own country down in this area, which was Idumea. Well, we know that in 30 BC, Mark Antony and Cleopatra both committed suicide. Well, Herod had this palace that was built just 6 kilometers south of Bethlehem, up on this large rise. So when I say in the shadow of the Herodion, south of Bethlehem is this huge hill that this huge palace has been built on. It's the ruins of the Herodion. Inside, you can see some of the ruins of the Herodion there. It was an open-air palace. There's a picture. It was, at that time, believed to be the 3rd largest palace, again, in the then-known world. Open air. In order to catch the sea breezes, they could go up here and catch the breezes off of the Mediterranean. They didn't have air conditioning in the summer, so they had to get those breezes off the water. The inside of the Herodion today, the palace. And we have let's just watch about a minute of the video, okay, Hank? This is a video of the Herodion. For me, I don't know about for you, but for me, when I look at the history of what's going on at that time, it just makes Scripture come so alive. And it makes it more real. Again, this was the 3rd largest palace of the then known world at that time. Herod built it as a way to get away from Cleopatra. Okay, that's good, Hank. I just want to give people a little flavor of what they see there. Another picture of the Herodion on the inside. Oop, can you jump back one, Hank? I think I went one too quick. Okay, in 2007, Herod's grave was found here at the Herodion. We know where Caesar's buried. We know where Herod was buried, 2007. Only 6 years ago it was found. Isn't it? It's totally amazing to me how archaeology, anything that's found always proves what Scripture has to say. Well, some people look at this and they say, well, wait a minute, this disproves because when did the church, or when do people often say Christ was born? 1 AD, right? I mean, that's what we've thought in the past. Well, the Catholic Church, the monk, the priest that did the timing, did a little bit wrong with their years because Herod died 4 BC. It's really believed Christ was born more around 5 BC. There was just a timing error that was done when they did the calendar. So Herod's tomb was found in 2007 there. But what is so amazing to me is the fact that here Herod is, the great builder. His palace overshadows Bethlehem. On the southern side of Bethlehem, so when the sun is moving, the shadow of the palace is maybe hitting Bethlehem. And yet there in Bethlehem, a child is born. Luke 2. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. And Mary gave birth to her firstborn, a son. And she wrapped him in clothes and placed him in the manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Now, if you're following with me, what you see is Caesar Augustus, a great world leader, did amazing things in his career, died and was buried and decayed. Herod the Great, in some respects a great leader, in other respects a tyrant, paranoid murderer, lived his life, built amazing structures, and yet died a broken man. As I said already, wanting to have other people killed so there would be mourning at his death. Not for him, but at least there would be mourning. 6 years